Each week, we will spotlight a different species, providing a focused look at the exceptional sensory capabilities and distinguishing traits of these majestic birds. So, I'm going to discuss a couple of different questions with Dr. Peter Capainolo, and I'm going to take him to the studio now. Hey, Peter, welcome to the studio.
Hey,
We are
Utku, how
going to
you doing?
I'm fine. I'm so glad to see you.
Same here.
So I think this is a nice arrangement here, so we can start discussing the questions. And each week, as I said, we will spotlight a different species. Today we are gonna talk about Peregrine Falcon, but I have a couple of different questions. But I'm gonna introduce you briefly to our audience. So Peter Capainolo, who is the senior scientific assistant and a professor of ornithology. So he's interested in birds for a long time. So I'm working with him. So actually, we are kind of team. So we are publishing together, we are working together, and Peter is a very nice friend of mine. So also he's very good bird scientist. So I'm gonna stop here. Could you please tell something about you? Maybe you can probably introduce yourself better than me.
Yeah, well, I've been interested in natural history ever since I was a little boy. I grew up in eastern Suffolk County on Long Island in New York when it was still very rural out there. And I grew up wandering around in the woods and the fields and the salt marshes, collecting frogs and birds' eggs and things like that, and bringing them home and reading about them and so on. And decided early on I wanted to be an ornithologist. So I studied zoology and ornithology with Heinz Meng, who was a professor of zoology at the State University of New York at New Paltz, upstate New York. In addition to being a biology professor, Heinz was a falconer, and I'd always been interested
Right.
in the birds of prey. Yeah, so I applied to the State University at New Paltz to study under Heinz, and did most of my undergraduate work there. Uh, Sometimes I would neglect my formal studies to go hawking and to hang out with Heinz and fly his birds, and just was always interested in birds of prey, particularly. Although I'm interested in all kinds of birds, as you know. And as you know, my PhD work was centered on the common grackle, which you were instrumental in
Right.
helping with, and we're working on those now. But I've always had a fascination for the hawks, the falcons, the eagles. I've kept several species under permit to hunt in falconry, the sport of hunting with birds of prey, old ancient practice. And so I've gotten uh, quite comfortable with talking about birds and the birds of prey in particular.
Of course. And could you please also tell something about your book about birds of prey?
Yeah, in 2010, my co-author Carol Butler and I published a book through the Rutgers University Press. It's called "How Fast Can a Falcon Dive?" Fascinating answers to questions about birds of prey, and it was part of a question and answer series on different animals, vertebrates and invertebrates, that Carol had negotiated with Rutgers. So the that book, the book about raptors, has been really well received, and it was a lot of fun doing it.
Perfect. So, well, starting this week, I'm gonna ask a couple of different questions. Well, actually, every week. So
Yeah.
we are gonna pick up one bird species, one raptor species, maybe one other bird species, and I will have some different questions, and we will discuss. Today, I have three different questions. So, as we said, we are going to talk about raptors. So, may I ask you, may I start? What do you think?
Oh,
You are
sure.
ready
I
for
think
the questions?
I'm ready for the questions. You know, there's about 10,000 species of birds, so we could have 10,000
Right.
discussions, right?
Yeah, 10,000 weeks. So it's
Yeah.
going to be very long. Okay, so the first question for the raptors. So, I mean, they are very interesting birds group. I mean, I always like them, but they have also different characteristics than other birds. So we will probably talk about them. But the first question that I have: which sensory organ is highly developed in diurnal birds of prey and nocturnal birds of prey?
Well, the diurnal birds of prey, the hawks, eagles, and falcons, their eyesight is quite highly developed. This makes sense, of course, because they rely on their eyesight during the day. They have full color vision.
Right.
They're able to see their surroundings in full color. They're able to see their prey in full color. But in addition to having color vision, the vision is much sharper than ours. So at a distance, things get kind of fuzzy for us. So if there was a little mouse in the grass 20 feet away, 100 yards away, it would almost disappear for us, become kind of pixelated. But in the diurnal raptors, for the most part, they have various structures in the eyes that are able to focus at further distances. So a mouse at 100 yards to us would look blurry, but to a raptor, a diurnal raptor, it would look very sharp. They're also very sensitive to small movements. They see a mouse's ears twitch,
Mhm.
or the tail move, or they see a bird fly in their periphery, um, and turn to be able to see that more sharply and go after them. So I would say that it's the eyesight of the diurnal birds of prey that are most important to them. But they do have very good sense of hearing as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the answer.
But
So
you
the
asked
night.
about you asked. I'm sorry. You asked about the nocturnal birds of prey too. I assume
Oh
you're.
yes,
So
yes,
you're
yes,
talking about the owls for the most part.
definitely. Yeah.
So owls, again, that's another family of birds. Actually, there's two families of owls: the barn owls and then all the other owls, and they can see a little bit in low level light, but they don't have any cone cells in their eyes, so they don't see color like the diurnal raptors. They see shades of black and white and gray because they don't need to see color if they're hunting in at dawn or dusk or in the middle of the night. So they have very very well developed hearing. Owls have very large ear openings, and some of the owls, the barn owls in particular, the ear openings are asymmetric. One is a little higher on the head than the other, so they're able to hear something with their right ear and kind of tilt their
Mhm.
head towards it, and then they hear it with their left ear, and they're able to triangulate to exactly where that animal is making noise. So birds like barn owls can actually use their hearing um, completely without being able to even see their prey, and be quite successful in pinpointing and capturing their prey just by hearing it. So there's two
So,
different strategies. Yeah.
and they have the asymmetric shape of the
Right.
ear.
Right.
So this helps to get the correct location of the prey.
Yeah. They triangulate the location of the prey by moving their head to hear the sounds in the asymmetric ear openings.
Right. And also they don't need to see the color, I think, because of
Right.
the night.
Right. So
So
they lack cone cells in their eyes. Cone cells are responsible for color vision, um, and rod cells are responsible for low level, low light
right.
conditions. So they have more rod cells than cone cells, and vice versa with the diurnal raptors.
Okay. Thank you so much. So the other question that I have: what characteristics distinguish birds of prey from other birds? So there are a couple of different things I know. For example, the size variation between males and females. So they're different than other birds, but some other things. Well, you know better than me. So yeah,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. And I've always answered this question the same way. People say, "Well, what is a bird of prey?" And the answer to that is any bird that captures, kills, and eats other animals for food. So a robin is a bird of prey because it eats earthworms. It catches them and kills them. A heron is a bird of prey because it catches fish, kills them, and eats them. But when we talk about birds of prey in the strict sense, we're talking about the eagles, hawks, falcons, vultures, and owls. And they have characteristics that are needed to be able to capture and kill and tear apart uh, other animals for food. So when you think of a bird of prey or a raptor, as they're often called, they all have more or less a decurved bill, a hooked bill that's very sharp, pointed at the tip. Um, Many, but not all, have very large decurved talons, sharp nails at the end of the toes. Um, they all have um, very good modes of flight. They're able to fly and find and capture their prey. In some cases, they knock them right out of the air. In other cases, they just pounce on them on the ground. Um, there are quite a few species in the families of what we call raptors. All the birds I mentioned, the hawks, falcons, vultures, and eagles and owls. There's quite a few species, hundreds. And so there's a lot of variation on the theme that I just elucidated. They all have very good eyesight, as I mentioned before. You mentioned something about the difference in size between the males and the females. That's not true for all the raptor species. It's true for the falcons for the most part, the true
Mhm.
falcons that we're going to talk about a little bit today, and it's true for the owls. It's true for the accipiters, the goshawks, the Cooper's hawks, things like that. Not as obvious in some of the other um, genera and species of hawks.
Okay. So today, I mean, I'm gonna ask you, can we take one type of bird of prey as an example to discuss? So we already picked up. So I have a short presentation to show this species because we are gonna talk about peregrine falcon, right?
Yep.
Okay, just a second. Yeah, I have this presentation.
Mhm.
I mean, the first slide, I just try to show the species in general. So this is the peregrine falcon. So yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna give you well give you time to discuss about this species. So yeah, you can go ahead, please.
Okay, so yeah, the peregrine falcon. When people think of the word falcon, it's
Right.
usually the peregrine that kind of comes to mind. So the peregrine falcon is one of um, uh, one of the species in the genus Falco, the true falcons. And while they may look superficially like hawks, they have a decurved, sharp bill, sharp talons, good eyesight. You can see it looks very much like a quote unquote a hawk. In fact, they used to be called duck hawks. Falcons are not really related to all of the other hawks. We used to think that they were all kind of grouped together. So, genetic work and some other work fairly recently has shown that these true falcons are more closely related to parrots and some of the songbirds instead of all of the other hawks. So that's interesting. And when you look at this photo here of the peregrine, you can see that the feathers are very tight against the body. It's got long pointed wings, very much like parrots, and they are superb hunters. Peregrine falcons have been used by falconers to capture game birds for thousands of years. And you can see the long pointed wings on the bird on the right that's
Right.
flying.
Right.
Yeah,
Here.
very long pointy wings. These birds are some of the fastest birds in the world. When they dive on their prey from heights of hundreds, maybe thousands of feet, they can attain speeds of almost 200 miles an hour. No one's quite sure, but they close
Oh,
their wings and they
you said 200 miles.
200 miles an hour. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That
Wow.
would be the upper limit um, of their ability to dive. But falcons, like the peregrine, they like to stay way up high in the air and make these circles in the air, and they wait for something to fly underneath them, a pheasant or a grouse or a pigeon or something that they're after. then they fold their wings almost completely against their body, and they come straight down. Falconers call it a stoop.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming down very, very fast, and they actually hit their prey in midair. There's an explosion of feathers usually. Sometimes the prey is killed outright, sometimes it's not. But the falcon will go down to the prey if it's on the ground. And they have a little special little structure on their upper bill called a tomial tooth. It's not a true tooth, but it's a little projection of the upper mandible, and there's a little notch in the lower mandible, and they use that to sever the spinal cord of their prey. They dispatch it that way, and then they'll pluck the feathers and start to eat the meat. They'll eat the internal organs and so on, and that's how peregrines hunt. But that's how most of the other falcons hunt as well. There are some exceptions.
Okay. So I have also another question about this peregrine falcon. So they usually live, well, not usually, but they can live in cities.
Oh yeah,
I know. So I mean, you are in New York right now. I'm in
yeah.
Ankara. So we have a couple of different examples, and I know some peregrine falcons live in Istanbul, in its city. So this behavior makes them different than other raptor species.
Well, different than some of them, and similar to others. Peregrines are birds that don't build a nest. The true falcons, the genus Falco, do not build a nest.
Right.
Some of them will lay their eggs inside of tree cavities and even nest boxes. But the big falcons like this, peregrines, gerfalcons, those kinds of falcons, they like cliff ledges, and little projections of the cliff, and this is where they lay their eggs. They might put a few little sticks in there, but they don't make a real nest. They just lay their eggs right on the rock. And when the young hatch, they're fed by the parents, and after a while they just leave the cliff ledge. A falcon's nest is called a scrape because it's really just a scrape in the ground on the cliff. But anyway, since they're used to nesting on cliffs out in nature, they adapt quite well to skyscrapers and the window ledges and places like that. So peregrine falcons have been nesting in some of the bigger cities for a long time now. They're fine with human beings. They're not anywhere near people. They're up in the sky. And there's an abundant supply of rock pigeons, which also nest on cliffs naturally,
Mm-hmm.
which is why they do quite well in cities, because the skyscrapers and the asphalt and the concrete and the building ledges are really good substitutes for natural cliff ledges out in the middle of nowhere, where falcons and rock pigeons are found naturally. So they do quite well in this sort of artificial cliff landscape.
Okay. Well, thanks, Peter. This is, yeah, that's why I just put this picture here.
Yeah, there it is, right in the city.
Right. Okay, so I finished my questions, and today we picked up the peregrine falcon, and as you can see behind me, I mean, there's a harpy eagle that you gave me. I mean, in the next video, we are gonna talk about, if you prefer, we are gonna talk about harpy eagle.
Sure.
Also, yeah, today we are gonna, yeah, I finished my question. If you wanna say something more, please go ahead, or otherwise we can finish this video.
Yeah, well, in the time that we had, we could only say a couple of things about the peregrine
Right.
falcon and about birds of prey in general. But yeah, it's a fascinating group of birds. Human beings have been fascinated by the raptors, the birds of prey, for thousands of years. And if folks are interested in learning about the other species of falcons, or more about birds of prey in general, there's a lot online now. There's still plenty of books that can be purchased or found in libraries, both general books and books that deal with specific species of raptors as well.
And also they can follow us, and every week we are going to upload the video for one bird species.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much. And
Okay,
I'll meet you again the next week with another bird species.
sounds good.
Okay. Bye for
Okay,
now.
thanks, Uku.